The San Joaquin Valley, nicknamed the food basket of the world and the land of a billion vegetables, is one of the most unique, diverse, and fascinating areas in California. But it's also presented with a great challenge in providing equitable healthcare to its residents. Today, I'll discuss the social, economic, cultural, and environmental challenges that the residents of the San Joaquin Valley face, and the effect of those issues on their healthcare access and overall health. And I'll begin by explaining the valley's geography, economy, and demography. Spanning the southern two-thirds of California's Greater Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley is bordered by the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, the Tehachapi Mountains, the Sierra Nevada Mountains, and the Coast Ranges. And it's made up of Fresno, Kern, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Tulare, Merced, Madera, and Kings counties by population. Agriculture is the valley's predominant industry, and the area serves as an important food source for the entire United States. The erosion from the aforementioned mountains created deep and fertile topsoil over thousands of years, and this, combined with a pattern of foggy and rainy winters without frost, a Mediterranean climate, a large and skilled population, as well as the availability of developed surface-level and groundwater infrastructure, all contributed to the fertility of the San Joaquin Valley and the dominance of agriculture in the region. Despite being predominantly agricultural and rural by area, livestock farming, oil drilling, and shipping and distribution are huge industries, and the San Joaquin Valley has many large population centers in urban and suburban areas. Fresno, Bakersfield, Stockton, Modesto, and Visalia make up the San Joaquin Valley's biggest cities, and there are plenty of smaller towns distributed across the region, and by population, the San Joaquin Valley is 86% urban or suburban. In addition to the valley's 14% rural population, the surrounding Mariposa, Tuolumne, Calaveras, and San Benito counties are 62% rural. Living in rural areas distanced from medical services is a large barrier to healthcare access, which increases the risk of complications from acute injury and decreases access to preventative care as well as continuous treatment for chronic disease. The San Joaquin Valley is 35% white, 50% Hispanic, 7.6% Asian, 4.7% African American, 1% American Indian, and 0.32% Native Hawaiian. Most valley communities have prominent minority groups with strong senses of cultural identity. Unfortunately, such diversity presents a unique challenge for health equity. Cultural barriers to healthcare, inadequate cultural awareness from physicians, and a limited English proficiency remain large problems. 10.3% of the San Joaquin Valley population has limited English proficiency, and these residents are faced with language-based discrimination and communication barriers, which are also roadblocks for healthcare access and educational attainment. Only 72.7% of San Joaquin Valley high schoolers graduate, and only 60% of the total population has attended at least some college. In both regards, the valley falls short behind the rest of California. Not to mention, 75% of 3-year-olds and 20% of 4-year-olds are not enrolled in preschool, which has long-term effects on both cognitive development and socioeconomic mobility, both of which are crucial for attaining the greatest quality of health. Due to cheap automobile transportation, highway development, single-family home construction, and rapid population growth, San Joaquin Valley cities demonstrated systemic urban sprawl, which decreased reinvestment into city centers and created disparities among residents of the inner cities. The average household income ranges from $44,000 to $57,000, compared to the California average of $67,000. 24% of the San Joaquin Valley residents live below the poverty line, whereas only 15% of California residents do so. 66% of children in the San Joaquin Valley qualify for reduced or free lunches, as opposed to California's 55%, demonstrating higher rates of child poverty in the valley. Poverty pervades all aspects of life, and it makes it significantly harder to achieve proper health care, especially when it comes to obtaining insurance and making regular doctor visits. Both poverty and population density play a role in food availability, and in the San Joaquin Valley, 14 to 33% of low-income residents live greater than a mile for urban or greater than 10 miles for rural residents away from a supermarket. And being caught in these food deserts, when compounded with poverty, can be detrimental for diet and lifestyle, which are integral for maintaining good health. In addition, a lack of open space, especially in urban communities, inhibits exercise, which again is important for health. Transportation is also required to access medical services and achieve healthy living. And when cities are planned in a way that everything's so far apart, and when people are distanced from medical services, transportation becomes a big problem, especially when there's poverty and an inadequate public transportation system. Inner city and rural residents of the San Joaquin Valley have the biggest need for adequate transportation and telehealth services, which usually isn't met and which can lead to negative health outcomes. Maintaining a healthy diet, exercising, and seeking out healthcare services can be made incredibly difficult by these high rates of poverty, overwhelming costs of housing, food deserts, lack of transportation, and inconsiderate land use, which can lead to underserved inner cities, lacks of open space, and the close proximity of low-income neighborhoods to polluted land, air, and water. The presence of tall mountains, a lack of strong winds to disperse smog, stagnant weather, and more frequently wildfires created the perfect environment for bad air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. Dust from agriculture, diesel and gas fumes from trucking and car transportation, and the gases from oil fields all contribute to air pollution, but the biggest contributor is ammonium nitrate. Nitrogen oxides from automobiles and ammonia gases from livestock farming contribute to form ammonium nitrate in the atmosphere, which accounts for more than half of PM 2.5 in the San Joaquin Valley. Half of nitrogen oxides come just from diesel trucks and nitrogen fertilizers used in farming. Bad air loses local farms up to $1 billion a year, and 1,300 premature deaths are linked to noxious air annually. The Environmental Protection Agency has classified every county in the San Joaquin Valley as a serious and extreme non-attainment zone for PM 2.5 and ozone pollution respectively, meaning pretty much everywhere doesn't meet the EPA regulations for clean air, and that could have bad health effects, which we'll explain in the next video. In addition to this, the popular use of manure-based nitrogen fertilizers for crops is also leading to polluted groundwater, which 90% of San Joaquin Valley residents rely on. For every 1 acre of fertilized land, 80 pounds of nitrogen leach into groundwater aquifers, and this pollution affects up to 250,000 people in poor and rural communities. 40% of 181 domestic wells have nitrate levels above 10 milligrams per liter, which is hazardous. In the Turlock Basin alone, 8 out of 90 wells were polluted with nitrates, which can cause a variety of vascular health problems, which again I'll explain in the next video. The plentiful farm and rural populations of the valley are also prone to pesticide exposure, which has its own set of health risks. And when it comes to pollution in general, those in lower income and rural communities carry the highest burden. There's also a potential ethnic factor, as areas with the greatest respiratory risk have the highest Hispanic population, 55%. Along with greater risks of illness due to pollution, the San Joaquin Valley is plagued with a shortage of physicians and overall access to medical care to meet with those demands. In the state of California, there's an average of 400 people per doctor and 2.1 hospital beds per 1,000 people. Now compare this to the San Joaquin Valley, where there are 671 people per doctor and 1.8 hospital beds per 1,000 people. That's almost 68% more people per doctor, and that's 17% less hospital beds per 1,000 people. And this also places a higher burden on those physicians, which can increase burnout and reduce overall care for their patients. This problem is only amplified for preventative, prenatal, and mental health care. So in the end, higher rates of disease are raised even higher by a lack of available providers. From my own experience, hospitals and emergency rooms in particular are overcrowded and criminally understaffed. This is paired with long wait times for outpatient care, with some specialty providers having wait lists of up to a year. Although solutions are being put into place to resolve the issue, many of the problems I discussed still persist. In the next video, I'll explain the specific health problems that arise from these socioeconomic and environmental factors. And then in the next video, I'll explain what's being done to alleviate health inequity in the San Joaquin Valley, as well as what you can do about it. And hopefully it won't take 3 more months, but we'll see. Alright, goodbye.